relatively better day 2 of Blitz. He scored 3.5 points until now out of 8 rounds. And if he manages to win this one, he would be able to finish second. And he is on 19 points right now in this tournament. And his opponent, R. Pragnananda, who has had quite a tough day with 2 draws and 6 losses. So both these youngsters definitely facing tough time in Blitz, but the last round will be a lot to play for. And you can see, while Pragg would like to win his first game of the day and end the tournament on a high, Gukesh would definitely like to finish second. He's in a three-way tie at 19 points with Duda, Wesley So and himself. Magnus has already won the tournament. And also Pragg had won the first clash between them. So let's see what happens here. And the players have a handshake there. And b3 by Pragg, the move that he's been playing. d5, bishop b2. The bishop comes to f5. And now d3. Now notice that this is what Pragg has been doing through all the games. He goes d3, knight d2, puts his bishop here, and then breaks in the center with e4. That's how he's playing, and then he decides whether to put the knight on h3 or f3 and castle. He goes e4, Gukesh goes bishop e6. This is all preparation by Gukesh, which is quite interesting because he knew that he would be facing Pragg and Pragg would go for b3. Pawn takes, knight takes and knight f3. It's important to take the pawn or else black would have pushed forward. f6, castles here, bishop comes out to e7 and Gukesh intends to castle as well, but Pragg is preparing d4 to break in the center. So Gukesh played the opening very quickly, has more than 5 minutes on the clock. Pragg at 4 minutes 53 seconds. And now Gukesh is basically assessing the dangers of the move d4. Is it something that he should try and stop? Is he afraid of that move? Maybe castles is one idea here. Queen d7 also possible. He shot castles and I think Pragg can go for d4. The nice thing about the move d4 is that black cannot play e4. The white knight controls it. Rook e1 played by Pragg. A useful move, putting pressure on the bishop. Now knight c7 defending here. Attacking d3 and stopping d4 would have been nice, but Gukesh goes queen d7, allowing Pragg to break in the center with d4. Already it looks a little dangerous for black. I think a good idea is to take, and we reach an equalish position there, which could be what Gukesh is calculating right now, but he takes first, takes, and now goes knight b4. And this one comes as a bit of a surprise because if you take here on e5, I believe he wants to jump into d3 and attack the bishop and the rook. The other option is, white can go here knight f1. This is a very strong move because you are preparing knight e3. You are also stopping knight d3 and you want to play a3. But knight f1 looks a bit too passive, right? It might be a better idea to actually try and see if there are any other active ways, like knight c4 seems like a plan. He goes knight e4, Pragg. And now Gukesh can take the pawn on d4. Look at this. Knight takes d4, knight takes d4, pawn takes d4, and bishop takes d4. This could be a way to play, and black is doing completely fine. Gukesh here taking his time. The knight can jump to c5 as well. So you have to be careful about your move. Next move that Pragg wants to play. And Gukesh goes f5. And Pragg, even without thinking about knight c5 here, pushes to g5. Gukesh pushes his pawn to e4. Very interesting move. And Gukesh is essentially saying to Pragg, take my bishop. I'm okay with it. But now I have a very strong center here. And for Pragnananda, it makes sense to take on e6. Queen e6, a3, the knight comes to d5 and Pragg jumps in with his knight to e5. The knight on e5 is doing well. Maybe you could play rook a d8 as one move. I was also wondering if rook a c8 makes sense. But Pragg wants to break now in the center with f3. Gukesh goes bishop to f6. And now it's time to push pawn to f3, I believe. That seems like the most logical move here to break this. And I guess white would have a fine position. Because knight e5, pawn takes, bishop takes, queen takes. But then there is fe4. He finds it. f3 on the board. That is what he played. And e takes f3 might be dangerous here. Especially because of a discovered check. I can take on f3, attack your knight. Knight g6 is in the air. So this shouldn't be played. E takes f3, not a good move. Maybe a good idea is to play e3. Just push the pawn forward, but instead goes bishop e5. And white now thinking about what to do. D takes e5 is a possible move. But also there is f takes e4, attacking the knight. He goes fe4. Great move by Praggnanandhaa. And Gukesh is slightly in trouble. Fe, he takes here. And now take the bishop on e5. Let's say pawn takes bishop, knight takes, and rook e4 would be a big advantage for white. So Pragg takes, he takes on e5, and Gukesh must not take the pawn with his knight because that would be big problems. He goes rook a d8, the best move in the position. And now there are some ideas to give a discovered attack. He takes on e4, maybe not the best. Knight f4, Gukesh jumps in with his knight, and look at him. He's feeling the confidence here. He thinks he can actually now get the win here, which is interesting because actually he's a pawn down. But the queen is attacked. The queen, where will it move? Like if it goes to f3, there is knight h3 check, it would lose itself. These squares are unavailable. There is no square apart from c2 which makes any sense here. I mean, giving this queen up doesn't make that much sense. It looks very good position for white, for black. So knight f4, queen c2 is what you have to calculate. But then queen c2 check. If you go king g2, there might be rook f2 check. So king h1 and then another check. You move your king up or to g1, not so sure. e4 is hanging, queen h3 could enter. Lot to calculate here for Praggnanandhaa, which is why he's been thinking here. He had 2 minutes 55 seconds when this move has started, and he plays queen c2 with 1 minute 51 seconds. That's 1 minute 4 seconds he thinks. King goes to h1, and now for Gukesh, I think giving a check. Is the correct move. Gukesh thinking hard here. Pragg super focused there. One thing is for sure, both these players, no matter how many defeats they faced, their fighting spirit never dims. Always trying to fight, always trying to push themselves, because for them, this is not their final event of their life. Whatever new they will learn here is going to be helpful to them for the rest of their life. So check, king goes up to g2. And now taking on e4 is a very logical move. But after rook e4, okay, white is a pawn up. The other plan, a very interesting move, is knight a5. You attack here, and if b4 is played, you go knight b3 attacking here, and the rook is running out of spaces because of rook d2 coming in. So this knight a5 move is quite a tricky move to meet, but it's so difficult to actually think about knight a5 in such positions, because your main idea is somewhere here on the king side, queen h3 check. You are calculating if this check works or not. Is there anything that can be done to launch a free-flowing attack? Not sure how to continue, but Gukesh has to be careful of his time. If he goes too low on the clock, plus being a pawn down, he will be in trouble there. He plays knight to d4, a good move, because if bishop takes, Then he can take with the rook, increasing the attack on e4. Also, notice that bishop h7 does not work because of king h8. And now this bishop is misplaced. There is queen h3, queen takes h7 also possible here. So clearly this is not what you want to snatch a pawn there. It's time for Pragnananda now to think whether he should capture this knight or not, move his queen away. He goes queen c4 and I think it's a nice move. Because if takes, pawn takes, and white is doing slightly better because of the extra pawn. And apart from that, Gukesh kind of tries to focus himself on the board and see what can he do. His knights are a little bit into the position. Maybe knight e4 can be thought of. The other idea could very well be takes, 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 and then knight e6. And this position should be roughly around equal, even though white is a pawn up. So queen c4 on the board and Gukesh goes b5. I love this move actually, because he's forcing white to capture on e6, and then the knight jumps in and blockades the pawn. But there is one small problem. After queen e6, knight e6, yes, he takes. You can save this bishop. Bishop c6 is a great move. And yes, you can be afraid of knight d3 because it's attacked here, but rook e2 kind of saves everything. Knight takes, rook takes. And I'm sure that Pragg is thinking about this idea of saving his bishop here on f3. It's thinking, goes bishop f3. Blocking here and attacking the knight. Have to be careful. If rook d2, there is rook e2 with a winning position for white. The best move perhaps is rook to d3. If you can get your rook here, it attacks b3 and f3. He finds it. Rook b3 on the board. Rook d3 on the board. And now Pragg has to remain super careful here. He is losing one of the key pawns. He is pawn up right now. But after bishop e2, rook b3, he's lost that pawn. And not just losing the pawn, but the momentum is shifting here to Gukesh's favor. Pragg here now wondering what should be his move. He goes bishop c1. And now can we go knight d3? He goes knight d3. He removes his knight from this slightly perilous situation on f2. Rook f1 played. He exchanges bishop f1 and now knight to e5. So Gukesh has won a key pawn and he seems to be doing really well. Pragg has to be super accurate with moves like bd1, but he goes rook a2 and he intends to come into the center with his rook to attack the black pieces. Knight d4 played. A good move here, attacking the e2 pawn, rook d2. And now takes, knight c4, check. King f7, check here. And Gukesh has gone wrong. He has made a mistake which actually gives Pragnananda the chance to equalize. We will check after the game what was that very critical error that Gukesh made. And things have turned around and Pragg is now okay. No longer losing. B pawn is being attacked. So you have to trade on a3 with a check. Bishop a3, rook a3, rook b6 check. He goes up, gives it up with a check and now attacks this pawn on g7. Gives a check, king comes up, rook takes, and you can see Gukesh was so unhappy there. With this, he doesn't even realize where he missed his opportunity because he could have won here. And threefold repetition, the players agree to a draw, a handshake, and Gukesh looks at the screen immediately, trying to see if what happened with the other players. Well, Wesley So managed to beat Fabiano Caruana in absolute brilliant finish that was there. Fabi was totally winning and Duda lost to Anish. So Gukesh had to